Hello and welcome. You're watching Cricbuzz Live. My name is Tanay Tiwari, and that is that then. India beat South Africa in a home bilateral T20I series for the first time. Sealed the second T20I by just 16 runs, despite putting on the board 230 plus runs. Yes, South Africa needed 238 to chase at the 10th over mark. South Africa was 70 for 3. Then the carnage that David Miller brought upon the Indian bowlers just had no answers for that. 106 not out of just 47 deliveries, a 46 ball century for Killer Miller. But in the end, India winning the game by 16 runs and the series 2-0. We've got Ajay Jadeja and Bhattacharjya joining us on the show. Gentlemen, welcome. And we will talk about the big score. We will talk about how India's bowling is still lacking in certain areas. But AJ, what a knock was that by David Miller? Sir, we've got to hear you, sir. Unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, an amazing knock. I mean, you got to feel for the man. I mean, he played an outstanding knock, but had no support from the other side. Normally, you would say that where, others would just be getting out. I mean, look at those numbers. I mean, and to carry on for that long and still be not out at the end. I mean, I probably thought that South Africa gave up very early in that game. I think they almost, once they went into that, lunch break, or dinner break, or whatever break that is, I think they probably looked at that scorecard and said, look, it's too far. Maybe we need to use this as a different, game. They tried with the first couple of guys, and then it was almost like, let's get Quinton Decock back into form. Let's get something out of this game. And I think they probably gave up a bit early. And at the end, they must be surprised by themselves. And thanks to that knock that you just referred to, that knock was an unbelievable knock. We've seen him play many knocks, but this is one of his finest as well.
Yeah, and Joy, I mean, this has been the year of David Miller now. We saw him do this for the Gujarat Titans in the IPL. But when you bat in a position where David Miller bats in the middle order, it's not usually that you get to score these centuries. And now this is his second time. I think I was just checking what Deepu had sent us. And this is David Miller as the first player to score multiple T20I hundreds batting at number 5 or below. And that shows you the quality of the man.
Absolutely. I mean, his ability to accelerate is absolutely amazing. And what he can do, which, a lot of batsmen don't do, is he can hit spin as well. A lot of the South Africans play pace well, but they're not that confident against spinners. He's brilliant against spinners. He can muscle the ball. And exactly, I mean, that knock against Bangladesh at Poch as well. Potchefstroom, I think that was the last time he got it. That was absolutely amazing as well. I remember that knock. And look, that's the point. Coming in at 5, if you have a guy who's capable of scoring international centuries or big 80s and 90s like he did for the Gujarat Titans, he is a formidable asset. And exactly, we are ending this. We started this day when we're talking about the preview, talking about the South African bowling. And if their batting is a bit better, it could be very dangerous side. Well, their batting has proven that they can be a very, very, very dangerous side, even when they end up on the wrong side of the victory column.
Yeah, that is true, because right outside the power play, their score read 47 for 3, I think, in the 7th over. They of course lost 2 wickets inside the second over. In that very over, Ashdeep got those wickets. And yet that acceleration from South Africa, AJ, it's staggering. It's all, of course, down to David Miller. And I actually want to talk about something that you just said. You said that David Miller lacked support at the other end. Now, if anyone reads that partnership stat of him with Quinton Decock, they'd say, well, Quinton Decock scored 60 of 37. He wasn't as express as David Miller, but it wasn't that bad. And yet, the story at the ground, AJ, was completely different.
Yeah, because when you look at those numbers, yes, it still looks decent, 37 of 60. But, anybody who's watched the game would probably look at it and, remind you that out of those 37 balls, the other balls that he'd played before that had, literally nothing out of it. He got one edge in that third man region where he got a 4. And even in that partnership, out of that 37, the first 15-20, when the game really mattered, he would have not, contributed. It was just towards the end when he started, getting it in the middle of the bat. It's almost like, gave you a guarantee one day with KL Rahul that from now on you'll see 150 strike rate. How Rahul used that game, and where everybody was, very unhappy with him. I think this game was used by, whether it was Quinton Decock's idea or whether it's his team idea. It's almost used like that. So he's been struggling. He's got more runs today than he's got in the entire year. I think very close to that. I'm never
correct.
But pretty much the same. So if he was going to play for South Africa in that World Cup, an essential, part of that batting lineup, so they used that, and Quinton Decock used that innings to do that, and that's why that numbers, like I tell you, numbers can be looked at deeper. So when I go deeper into those numbers, 37 balls, 60 on a day is still fine, because even if you're chasing 240. But if it had been from the start, it would be different, because if for 48 balls, it's only 69. So only in that partnership. So by the time that partnership started, they'd given up on the game.
Yeah, correct. And Joy, 69 not out of 48, and juxtaposed to that is David Miller, 47 balls. He's played one ball less and kind of had to make up for the lack of scoring from Quinton Decock as well, that 106 not out. Because at one point, Quinton Decock in this partnership was going at a strike rate of less than 100.
No, absolutely. Even when he was batting with Markram on the other end, he was patting the ball back. Yes, he couldn't time the ball, and sometimes it's difficult to hit, and so you try and give the strike to the other guy. But Quinton just didn't try enough. Now if you look back and said, if that 70 for 3 had been 85 for 3, okay, at that point in time, and they played the way they did, this could have been a very different match. As it turned out, it just squeaked out, because if you know, Rohit was trapped. He had a situation where there were two left-handers. He can't bring back Akshar Patel. He's waiting and he's waiting and he's waiting. And had it turned out that it's just 25 in the last over, what could have happened? Because Akshar Patel is finally going to be struck as a left-arm spinner, going to bowl to two left-handers who've been in the crease for a long time for the last over. So this 10-15 extra runs in those first 10 overs. And when you say 10-15 extra runs, what do we talk? We're talking about 1 or 2 extra runs in over, and you make up that 10-15. That this could have been a really, really serious match. And that is something that South Africa will be looking at. And exactly as Ajay said, they think we might just have given up just way too early. At least Miller's batting showed them that had they sort of persisted and, pushed the pedal a bit harder in the first 10, maybe this could have been even tighter.
Yeah, you never know. The last over, South Africa required 37 to win, and they gunned down 20 of those. So there's, of course, quality. And as AJ and Joy both mentioned, that Quinton Decock might have spent time out there, but there's a guarantee card from AJ there that this might help him get better. But the one thing that has been, a topic of concern, a topic of debate all along, AJ, is India's ability to defend targets. And now this is something that we spoke about in the pre-match show as well. Today, again, you had a huge score on the board. You had the team virtually on the mat. 3 players down in the 7th over right outside the power play. Then you slowed them down as well. And yet to leak that many runs, this would still hurt Team India, because the figures for all the bowlers do not make for good reading.
Yeah, it's been a game of 234, or, you scored so many, so every numbers will look different, but at least there's Deepak Chahar, who's the shining star for you. He's another one who's come back from injury. Slowly he came in, played one game against Zimbabwe, took a break, then played another one, then stayed out in the Asia Cup, and slowly he's come back. So he's been the only shining star today, whereas the other guys are going probably in that other direction. And it is a problem. It is persisting. There is no doubt in my mind. But maybe it's just the way the game is going. It's almost like the purists or people like me who believe 5 bowlers should play will start getting questioned again and saying, listen, even if you play 5 bowlers, you still give 235 runs. South Africa gave those runs away, and then the Indian bowling side, being from that such good position, still ended up giving 200 and 220 they got to finally.
Yeah.
So it's how you play as well. It's not. So it is still a concern. I'm trying to defend them, but it's hard to keep defending our guys.
Yeah.
They are struggling, and more than anything else, what scares me is not just the number of runs and scores that you've given. Something like if I had to look into detail, Arshdeep Singh with the number of no balls that he ended up bowling.
Yeah.
He's coming back after a break. In fact, he was bowling brilliantly. He was sent away to recoup. Maybe he had an injury as well. We'd never know what's happening within that team. But 3 no balls, that is something that I would worry. I'd not worry about somebody getting hit for sixes or four, because that's something that the opposition can also play well on a certain day. So things like that would worry me, and that worries me more than, the ability to hold the opposition back or not pick up wickets, because that tells me that definitely something's missing in Arshdeep. People who like numbers just for them. Speeds when he was bowling in the first part of when he was playing was 140s, close to 140. The last 3 games, if you look at his speeds, they're probably down to 130. So there is something that's gone missing. I'm not too sure because we don't get news whether he's injured or not.
Yeah.
But those no balls and speeds going down, that definitely is a worry for me at this moment, especially with Bumrah gone.
That is very interesting, and that's very evident in the number of runs that India have leaked as well. If we look at their innings progression again, Joy, the one thing that stands out is, of course, we saw this game, a lot of runs were scored in the death overs, 16 to 20. South Africa scored 78, India scored just 4 more. So it's like you've leaked that many runs towards the end, and India had the momentum coming into it. South Africa, and on the other hand, were on the mat at one point in the game. So from there, for them to come back is a bigger victory against India's bowlers.
Yes, it is. And really, other than Deepak Chahar, nobody looked as if they could defend. And that is going to be a worry. It's going to be a real worry because, Deepak Chahar was absolutely brilliant, spot on. Arshdeep, as you said, injuries, when you have lots of no balls and you have speed going down, that's almost surely a sign that's all is not physically well, or he's not in rhythm, or still not back there. But that's a real worry with Bumrah. And you see, the problem is that there's so many such changes that have happened that if Bumrah goes out, if Arshdeep is not fit, Shami is the first person in the picture, but who do you take him? Bhuvi's not been in form, and now Bhuvi's been sent off to, they want to check up on him. So all sorts of things are happening out here, and that's what I'm saying. It's not taking a settled look. Everyone was hoping after that first match and after what Arshdeep did in the first over, 5 runs, 2 wickets, and that too, runs off an edge. And then he goes for 56 runs in his next 3 overs without a wicket. So that's the thing. Arshdeep being hit in the last 3 overs is actually, that's why maybe, you see the pictures towards the end of the match. The Indians are not really celebrating. They won a series, it's 2-0. You say, okay, the series is over, we've won it. But there's just too many questions which have been asked to the Indian bowling that has remained unanswered. And I think that's a big worry for them.
It is. And you're so right, Joy, because the pictures that we saw, and he's so right. You win a series, you beat a team at home for the first time. South Africa have never lost a series in India. They've not lost a series, I think, throughout this year. To beat that team, you'd think that would bring happiness. And yet, AJ, the way this defeat for South Africa panned out towards the end, the kind of beating that your death bowlers have had and the problems that have persisted for a very long time, it just didn't feel like a big series win, at least on the faces of those players.
Yeah, it was like that for Indian team. And if people who didn't watch or people who watched, if you saw how Quinton Decock, when he got to his 50, it wasn't a celebration. It was almost the same with the Indian team when they won that series or won that game. Because as players, you understand. I know everybody at the end only looks at the result, but the players and the team and people around the team are looking at not just the result, because results can go the other way sometime. But if you're playing well, are you getting better? Or if this is one of those days that you say, you bowl a long hop and somebody hits a pull shot straight into the hands of mid-wicket, the scorecard would shows you that, oh, you've got a wicket, but you put your head down and say, oh, I just got lucky. I think Indian team was in that reaction today, that I think we got away, when they would be worrying more, saying, "Arey yaar, we got away in a game after scoring 234. What will happen when we don't score 234?" This will put pressure onto the Indian batting. And I think not forget about the World Cup game. The next game that we're going to watch in Nagpur is going to be a cracker, I can assure you that. Because the pressure now comes on India. If they bat first, they have pressure. If they bat second, they have pressure. And that bowling, which has soaked in all the pressure. In fact, at the end of the day, they've still won. If I was part of that team and I had to talk to the team, you'd want to bring them up and say, listen, you soaked that pressure. They probably will, be a little more relieved, and they would come out better in that next game. It'll be a batting that I'll be very interested to see how we approach and what total that we get to.
Yeah.
But this is a one that you've got away on your best day of your batting. I don't know if other people agree with me or not, but I haven't seen Indian team bat as well as this throughout 20 overs for a very, very long time. On a day like that, with opposition being down 2 down for nothing and getting so close to that game, there are going to be some people who will have tough time to go to bed tonight.
Yeah, Joy, you agree with that sentiment because it's so true. He's talking there, and the visuals are just coming in, playing in my mind, and he's absolutely right. It's a tough series win to celebrate, and that's a strange thing to say.
Yeah, and not only that, you look at what you say with the Indian batting. See, if India had one guy, Rahul, get a big 120 or something and do it, that would have been a different thing. Here, all your guys are fired. Rohit is fired, Rahul is fired, Virat has fired, Surya has fired, Karthik is finished. Ideal. Everyone has got, the dress rehearsal for the World Cup. Everyone's done their job. It's not one big innings. After that, to see, so it's as good as you can ever get because, when one player does really well, that's great. But if 3, 4, 5 players have contributed, that makes you feel even better because that tells you that, there's a lot of versatility in the side. Everyone is in form. After that, when you get hammered and you have to, come down to winning by 15 runs in a match like this, it is scary. And lots of questions have been asked. You've opened the door of uncertainty in the mind of, people, and everyone else is looking and saying, this Indian bowling, if you put it under pressure, what's going to happen? And that's the one thing with this bowling. Bhuvi is a brilliant bowler when he's on top. Mm-hmm. When he's under pressure, he's a different bowler. The only bowler at this point in time who's seems to be consistently showing that he can perform under pressure is Deepak Chahar. And just let's hope he holds up physically.
Yeah, and it's just been that kind of a phase for Team India today as well. The 19th over went for 26 runs, and that just doesn't make for a good reading. But that means that we've got to now talk about the third game. India take on South Africa in the third T20I in Indore, which is an even smaller ground, AJ, with the belter of a pitch as much as we've seen so far with a few IPL games here and there and T20 games. It's a very small ground, short boundaries. And with that kind of a bowling attack, you have got to know that this is your last chance because this is your last T20I. You do play some practice games, but this is the last time you play in a proper match environment.
Yeah, this is a game that, ideally as Indian team or the South African team has to look at it and say, listen, this is the game in the final. Say we're in the World Cup. Whoever wins goes through to the knockout. This is how important this game is. Series is lost. What has happened in the past, you have to forget. And can we play this game or simulate this game? And how we're going to play in that World Cup? Are we capable of doing it here? Because this is a one-off game. And it'll be I don't know, sitting here, I feel that people will take more chances in that game than we've seen in the last couple of games. Whoever bats first will have a huge pressure of what total that they have to get to. Yeah. So either it'll be somebody like India where they get to 230, 220, or it'll be a little push pataka that you'll go too hard at the top. Yeah. So if you're part of Indian team, you want to make sure that you don't go too hard and leave too much towards the end of that innings. That's how you will have to look at it. And it's a good practice. It's Absolutely. A good practice for that game in the World Cup. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and if you're in the Indian camp, Joy, are you secretly wishing that we really want to defend again? It's a very tough ground to defend. It's a flat track, short boundaries. We want to defend and just test out everything that we have to.
Yeah, look, again, I just genuinely believe that, you never want to win tosses and do things, Virat Kohli once said that you want to practice this and practice that. That's because Virat Kohli used to keep losing tosses, unfortunately. But my point is that they will want to win, seal it in 3-0, and whichever way, they want their bowlers to do something. This has been a bit of a scare for the bowlers. They'll just say, we need a good 20-over bowling performance. Somehow the bowlers need to give us 20 good overs. You can't give us, and one of the worries with bowling is inconsistency. You'll go 1 over, you'll go for runs, but 3 no balls, stuff like that happening. There needs to be a whole lot more discipline in the bowling attack, and I think they'll just focus on that because, as Ajay has very rightly said, the moment your bowling goes for the kind of runs they did today, the pressure is actually on the batsman. because then they're looking at each other and saying how much is enough. And they might end up doing something stupid. And that's exactly the problem that India is going to face. And this is not a problem for tomorrow. This is a problem for the World Cup if our bowling is not sorted.
Yeah. And inconsistency is a very key word there, because even in the second T20, I beg your pardon, we saw that Harshal Patel was going for runs. He was still acing some of those Yorkers, some of those dipping in slow balls, but they weren't just consistent enough in the areas that he wanted to bowl, which is why he went for runs aplenty, and that's a worry. But AJ, if you have a look at India's squad, I mean, of course, you've got some players sitting out, and the bowling has taken a beating. Do you make a change? Of course, there's no Jasprit Bumrah. Siraj has come in for him. Do you try him out? Because Siraj, of course, plays in the ODI series as well. There's Umesh Yadav, but that you don't really have a lot of other options.
Yeah, no, I won't take chances at this stage. I think we're in that World Cup mode already, and it will be too late. And if you leave out somebody now, it like I always say, it's never the one man that you leave out at the last moment, or when things go wrong, you leave somebody out. It makes an effect to the entire side. You've trusted these guys, and these guys have done well for you. People have bad days, and people go through bad runs unless somebody's injured. That's a different story. Otherwise, I would probably play the same side to make sure that when we get to that World Cup, we have no doubts in our mind, and it's not too far. I mean, you don't even need 20 good overs, Joyda. You get first 7-8 good overs, what we saw in that last game. Things can change. It's just that I just hope that we've not also got into this template business, because if a man takes a couple of wickets in the first over, is capable of swinging the ball, why would you not give him the next over? So unless it's a template that you want to follow the template as well, it's a wish. I mean, it's a call that captain and coach make, and I'll always back whatever they make. But it tells you, 5 days ago you bowled out a team. Understand conditions were different, things were you had to do different. But when you picked up 2 wickets, that man ended up giving up 60 runs at the end of his 6 overs. So certainly the template didn't work. Yeah. So it is about the top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 overs. You pick up wickets, you win the game. Opposition picks up your wickets, they win the game. That is how this 2020 has worked for the last 15 years that I've been watching. People who worry about the last 4 overs end up in trouble anyway. We saw that today. With 240 as well. When you didn't pick up wickets through the day, they were scoring at 15 and over whenever they wanted. So I would feel that play the same side, but play differently. How you strategize, you need to do differently, because somebody who can swing the ball early, why would you hold him back? You have Harshal Patel at the end, and you are right. He is struggling at the moment, but I feel, he's coming back from injury. Give him a couple of games. वो गारंटी कार्ड के लिए क्विंटन डिकॉक ने भी टाइम लिया, केएल राहुल ने भी लिया, तो हर्षल को भी दे देते हैं.
Yeah, and it was a good sign in that second T20I that he was nailing some of those Yorkers and bowling those slow dipping, slow balls as well, but they weren't just consistent enough. Now, Joy, you'd say Harshal Patel perhaps is that one guy who's looking at this third T20I and going like, this is my chance. I've got to ace it. I've got to execute my plans, and I've got to come out shining.
And Harshal Patel, again, a vital part of India. I mean, he's one of the guys who is a definite first team player, because he does a particular role. And with Bumrah's uncertainty, there definitely that his role is almost the most defined role as you have in this team. And look, he needs to be completely on the ball. I don't think exactly. I feel that if you start him early, the early overs, you need to put him exactly as Ajay was saying, that get Arshdeep in when the ball is swinging a little bit more early. Use him there. Let Harshal finish. Chair is doing better, well on both sides. Use Chair sparingly, but definitely you can hold Harshal back a little bit more and give him more of a chance to do his job as this specialist death bowler.
Yeah, and who's that player in South Africa's squad, AJ? I mean, they've had a great performance in the second T20I, but they still ended up on the losing side. They also have a lot of headaches. I mean, we've spoken about India, but they have headaches as well. One player here that's saying, this is my chance, I've got to go out there and shine.
One man, everybody, the whole of India was waiting for, and I was. Stubbs, it's almost like his cigarette's been stubbed. He hasn't walked out to bat. I mean, they lost by 15 runs. The guy hasn't batted. So, I want to see him. I mean, not that, I want to see him do well against India, but I want to see him, how he does it, in these conditions. But the man that I would watch out for, if there's one man, it's Quinton Decock. Please, that's the man to watch out. He's back. Because I feel back means class players needs one little opportunity, and I think he may have lost this game, the second game for South Africa, but it probably will give them more benefit than that bilateral. And he's the man that I'd be watching out for in the game in Indore.
That's very interesting because I've just gotten what David Miller has said after Quinton Decock's knock and after this game, Joy. And he said that Quinton obviously struggled up front, but he managed to bat through and gave us a chance. He's capable of hitting big fours and sixes, so it was just about getting in. As you saw, we were just 16 runs short. He walked up to me after the game and said, "Well played, and I'm sorry." So you're right, AJ, that he's perhaps had that realization, and what you're saying is correct. He's, as Miller said as well, he's spent that time in the middle. He's done the hard yards. Towards the end, we saw he was hitting them really clean.
Yeah, he got better and better and better. And, somebody who's had a year like he's had, you can understand that, he had to get, back into form. It is a mental thing. It's not that he's changed his technique or something. And we saw that with Virat Kohli, the day he came out and talked about his, mental aspect or whatever he had gone through. Things have seemed to have changed because, you just start flowing again. It's not, you're not worried. You're not thinking too much. You're just playing the ball and what you need to do. And with that knock, I believe that, he'll be back. And if the wicket is good in Indore, which generally is, right at the top, the player is always in trouble. Don't forget, he got that 140 in that IPL, all by himself. So he's capable of doing that. So when you ask me which man to watch out, because the first man who walks out is him, watch out.
All right, then Quinton Decock is the man to watch out for from South Africa. It's, of course, the third T20I that will be played in Indore. India have wrapped up the series 2-0, gained an unassailable lead, but a lead that also brings about a lot of questions. Of course, we'll come here again and talk about it all. But right now, the one big question that all of you need an answer to, I need an answer to as well, because I couldn't really crack it, is the joy factor question. What was it? Let's have a look. Over to you, Professor Joy.
Okay, the question was, whose 400th test wicket sealed a win for his country? That means it was the last wicket to fall. Yeah. And also fetched him a Player of the Match award. And it was actually his 11th wicket in the match. He was also the Player of the Match. The player was, of course, the one and only, a fantastic player for Sri Lanka for so many years, Rangana Health versus Pakistan at Abu Dhabi in 2017. It's fantastic to get your 400th wicket, but, a lot of bowlers get it in, their important defining wickets in unnecessarily not important matches. But this was a big match, a victory against Pakistan. Pakistan hadn't lost in Abu Dhabi for 10 matches.
They had it,
and taking 11 wickets and taking his team to victory was absolutely fantastic. So it was really a great
let's see who drove themselves to victory here, answering this joy factor question correctly and quickly as well. And the winner is Rishi Rukiana. Many, many congratulations, Rishi. I've not seen this name before. Have you? No, right? He's not a regular winner. Rishi has cracked it for the first time. Yeah, well done on your maiden joy factor win, Rishi. But before we go, we've got something very interesting from Joyda. So treat this as a retro reel ka chota sa reel right here on Cricbuzz, right? Joyda.
No, absolutely. Today's Bapuji, one of our great birth anniversary rather, and he's a man who inspires so many of us. So it was absolutely amazing when I actually saw an autograph book, and the picture of an autograph book. The autograph book belongs to Lakshmi Merchant, who is the sister of Vijay Merchant. And there are the autographs of the MCC team that came in 1933 to India. And the 16 team was led by Douglas Jardine, and all the 16 names are there. And the 17th name that you see out there is that of Mahatma Gandhi. He's signed as the 17th name. So the great story is that, Mahatma Gandhi, so Douglas Jardine, captain of the MCC, Mahatma Gandhi's name on 17th place. And as it turned out, the story is fantastic. I mean, Lakshmi Merchant first, obviously, with her brother, she went to the MCC team, got their autographs. And then later that year, she went to meet Mahatma Gandhi and she took her autograph book out. And he saw it, and instead of he saw all the pages, there were a lot of empty pages. He had a great sense of humor always. He turned to that page, wrote number 17, and signed out there in that page.
Wow.
And that's why you see Mahatma Gandhi's name on the list of Indian English cricket. It's absolutely fantastic. He was a great man, but he was also a man who had a phenomenal sense of humor.
Yeah. Correct. And through, I mean, as we celebrate every year on the 2nd of October, his birth anniversary. He's, of course, one of the stalwarts and a global leader, not only for India. Of course, he's the father of the nation, but he's a global leader and he's revered for all of that. But then you've got these stories to him as well, the sense of humor in the man. And that's I think these aspects perhaps make people even like Mr. Mahatma Gandhi a human. So yeah, that was a great story. This is just a bit on Mahatma Gandhi. This is Retro Reel style as well. So if you've not caught Retro Reels on Cricbuzz Plus, this is your plug. Go do that right now. And I'm sure once you start watching it, you're going to binge all of it. So go catch it on Cricbuzz Plus. But gentlemen, before we go, any guesses? Who's the player of the match? That's a tough one. AJ asked me the moment we came into the show. He asked, "Who's going to be the player of the match?"
Yeah, because I mean, you have to go to with Surya because at the end India won. You want to look at Miller, fabulous knock. I mean, not taking anything away. It's not easy to carry on doing what he did for that long and come back not out. But winning side has to have that advantage. So I think Surya Kumar Yadav.
All right, Surya is what you say, Joyda. Without looking at your Cricbuzz app, tell me because
I'm not
the Cricbuzz app.
Surya.
Okay.
I go with Surya as well.
You're going with Surya?
I think he defined the match. Everyone else reacted to it.
Yeah. Like, I don't have the baritone of Mr. Bachchan, or I'd say, Sajjano, ye jawab galat hai. Because it's KL Rahul who's been adjudged the player of the match for his 28 ball 57 right at the top of the innings. AJ, thoughts on that?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, sir. 100%.
I think we've been watching some other games.
MC.
I'm certain, I don't know about Joyda, I also feel the same. I think we watched some other game and these guys who were giving away the award were watching some other game.
I'm now trying to go back to the scorecard and check,
I also have to go back to
he played brilliantly, not taking anything away from him.
I'm absolutely. And look, I'm delighted. Rahul is in form. Virat Kohli is looking like the Virat Kohli we know and love. It's all fantastic. But how can you give the man of the match to anybody other than Surya Kumar Yadav today? And if you had to give it to a second person, I'd still say David Miller. I still wouldn't come to, the KL Rahul. And much as I like him, it's no reflection on him as a player, absolutely, or his innings. But there were better knocks today.
Yeah, there were.
TT, I think they gave it because the guarantee card worked.
Oh, yes.
It's plastic money time. It's not Gandhiji Day.
Yeah, it is. that is true. Then that wraps up a very good game and some great chatter here on Cricbuzz Live. It's always a pleasure hosting the two of you. Thank you, AJ, for joining in. Thank you, Joy, for joining in as well. Thank you to all of you for joining in as well. We'll see you, of course, very soon for the third T20I. That's all for today. Good night.